Today I'm so excited to be with my friend Roland, who is a part of our church family and an influential leader here in Edmonton. Thanks, Roland, for being with us.
It's an incredible privilege. Thank you for asking.
Well, Roland, I know in your heart there's just a passion to see people experience freedom from their hurts, hang-ups, and habits. And that's something that has happened in your life and that you love helping others with. Can you tell us a little bit more about the ways that you're doing that right now?
Well, right now I'm involved in a recovery program called Celebrate Recovery, which helps me in my process of dealing with my hurts, hang-ups, and habits. 11 years ago, I was asked to come back to Hope Mission and work there with them again. And for the last 11 years, I've been working in the inner city and working with those who are struggling with homelessness, with addiction, with mental health issues, and run across a lot of individuals that come from residential school background that just have incredible amount of pain, where they're answering the question when I ask them, like, help me understand why you're constantly, intoxicated.
Yeah.
And they're like, it's the only way that I know how to deal with the pain from the residential school.
Roland, what I love about your story and about who you are, I find it so true to how God uses us, that He often redeems our past. He restores us, He makes us new, and then He brings us to a point where we can help others who have been in the same place that we have been. And I remember in your story that there is a connection to the residential school. There's a connection in your life to addiction. And before you were able to help others find freedom from their hurts, hang-ups, and habits, you first did. But that was after a long journey of holding it in, right? So can you take us back?
Yes, 5 or 6 years ago when at a Celebrate Recovery meeting, I felt Jesus speaking to me and saying, hey, I want you to write out your story about when you were at the residential school back in Northwest River, Labrador. And I'm like, why? I've forgiven those people. It's like 40 years behind me. And what was so interesting about Jesus' response was, He said, yes, you've forgiven them, but you haven't allowed me to heal you.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, it's like I never really processed that healing part. And I remember sitting down at the kitchen table at home, and I put my 8.5 by 11 lined paper on the table. I felt Jesus was very clear that I didn't want you to write it out on a computer. I wanted you to handwrite it. When I went to pick up my pen, it was like that pen was a 150-pound weight that was full of electricity. And I experienced pain like I'd never experienced before. It just shot through my body and I couldn't write. I just had to lay the pen down, not touch it, and get up and walk away. And I realized that my life was riddled with pain that I so well covered up and masked. And one of those ways I masked that pain was just staying busy, doing a lot of good things that looked great on the outside. But on the inside, it was just covering up and pushing down this pain that Jesus wanted to set me free from. And so I went to my Celebrate Recovery leadership team, and I shared with them on a Celebrate Recovery night, this is the journey that Jesus has taken me on. I can't do this alone. I need your support. I need your encouragement. I need your prayers most of all. It took me a year to write out my story, and when I was able to lay down my pen at the end of it and take my story and put it in my filing cabinet and file it, it was like I just had this new sense of life within me.
Yeah. As you went through that journey in that year of picking up that pen and writing out your story and digging through what happened from your childhood onwards, would there be maybe one or two experiences that you were afraid to relive, you were afraid to think through, but when you did, this is the sort of freedom that God brought in your life?
Well, it's interesting because as I'm writing out my story, I got this picture of these strings that have been attached to my life over the years that have been controlling and manipulating me. And a part of that healing journey was seeing those strings cut.
Wow.
And so there was like different areas of my life that I began to find freedom.
Yeah.
But in that residential school, I slept on the top bunk. And there was someone that would come around and they would sexually molest me. And I remember just trying to pretend it away, like I'm asleep, it's not going to happen to me tonight. And so I'm just going to hope that it doesn't happen. But it would happen over and over again. And that was one of those things that Jesus walked me through in reference to my challenges with abandonment issues, with loneliness, with fear, with isolation, and helping me realize that, when there was a family gathering, I wanted to go into the kitchen because I didn't want to be close to people. And then, so God began to work on healing some of those issues in my life and identifying them and then bringing healing about them. That was one really pivotal moment in that whole process at the residential school. I remember as well the principal that was part of the high school at that point in time, which also was a part of that abuse that I experienced. I don't fully know for sure what happened to him, but I did hear that things didn't unfold in his life well. And I remember hearing that, and my heart went out to him, even though he was one of my abusers. Eternity lays at the doorway of everybody's life. And that was my biggest concern. I'm thankful that God gave me the grace to forgive. I'm thankful that He walks me through places of healing and wholeness. But there's still that ache in the heart of where's people going to spend eternity? Because it's real. And that really captivated my heart and my mind. God has given me a mission in life to see souls, see lives liberated through an ongoing, growing relationship with Jesus Christ, starting with mine. And to me, that's the most important thing, in this journey that Jesus has taken me on. And I'm so thankful that in the inner city of Edmonton and working with the people on the street and the people that come from the residential school that have struggled dealing with their pain, that I'm able to share my story and help them understand there is someone that heals, and His name is Jesus.
Yeah, Roland, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, because there's healing, as you said, healing that has come in your life as a result of Jesus and what He has done in your life. And I remember, Roland, in your story that there's a moment where you had a vision of Jesus, where as you were working through just that journey of trying to keep that buried, as that came out through addiction in different way, and as you then came to this point where you were like, no, I can't do life on my own. I need Jesus. How did He appear to you in and through that vision?
Well, I went to Celebrate Recovery not because I had any issues. I actually didn't think of myself having any issues whatsoever. I went with a friend of mine who was going, and I wanted to spend time hanging out with them, so I thought I could go to Celebrate Recovery. And I remember with the third night in, I was sitting near the front, and I had this vision of Jesus walking over to me. He was in a robe, but His arms were bare like mine. When He walked over, on His arms were written all kinds of issues in my life. And I could see them there, and I knew that they were my issues. But He wasn't bringing them to me to condemn me or to put me down or say, I knew those things about you. It was like He was coming over and He was walking over, and He bent over and He gave me this hug. And I just felt like He said to me, I'm aware of what's going on in your life, and I want to walk you through those issues. And that was another life-changing moment for me.
Roland, I would love for you to share maybe a word of encouragement. If there's someone tuning in right now that's just, that feels maybe that there's something in their past that they're afraid of bringing up, right? They hear the hope in your story of what happens when we bring up our past to Jesus, but they're just afraid of taking that first step. What encouragement would you have for them?
Jesus is faithful.
Yeah.
And he said that he began a good work in my life, and he told me that he would complete it. But I needed to trust him. When he gave me the prompting, I needed to respond. You may find yourself in that place where you're wondering, where you're struggling, where you have trouble sleeping at night because you're so burdened with some of the things of the past. It may be something that has been done to you, but it may be something that you've done to others. Jesus is well aware. And so it's not like I was telling him something he didn't know, but I was telling him something so that he can impart into me. I can give up something so that he gives me his life and his love. And that's what I want to encourage you. Jesus is faithful. He's been faithful to me, and if he can do it for me, he can do it for you. When I'm speaking to my Indigenous brothers and sisters, I come from an Inuit background. When I'm speaking to my Indigenous brothers and sisters downtown, I am reminding them, and it's so important. We speak about our Creator. We speak about God a lot. But as one of my friends told me years ago, if you leave Jesus out of the equation, you left the healer out of the equation. You've left the sanctifier. You left the one who is able to provide salvation. Yeah. You may have connection with God. You may have connection with the Creator. But do you have that connection with Jesus Christ, the one who is able to save and set the captive free?
Roland, thank you. Thank you so much for those encouraging words and for exemplifying and demonstrating the fact that we are not our past, but in Christ we are free from all condemnation. Thank you for proclaiming that through word, through deed, and for sharing your story with us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for letting me have the privilege of doing that.